What you are looking at is the pinnacle of human achievement, a Formula One car, a multi-million-dollar testament to the idea that if you throw enough money and geniuses at a problem, you can make a car go around in circles very, very quickly. It's unbelievable. Made of carbon fiber so complex, some would say it was designed by NASA. And it can generate so much downforce that it could theoretically drive on the ceiling. But how did we get here? How did we go from the humble motor car to this absurd and glorious piece of over-engineering? Our story begins in 1886 Germany. Carl Benz invents the first motor wagon. It had 3 wheels and less power than a startled goat. In every sense, it was rubbish. But it was a start. The problem was you had to start it with a hand crank, which had a rather unfortunate tendency to break your arm. So the very first car-related injury was the car punching you back. But then in 1888, a hero emerged. It wasn't Carl, but his wife Bertha. Years before, Bertha Benz had used her dowry to buy out Carl Benz's business partner. She had decided that the family's new contraption needed a proper test, so without telling her husband, she nicked it. She took the family's contraption and her 2 sons on the world's first long-distance road trip. She was brilliant. She used her hat pin to unclog a fuel pipe and invented the very first brake lining by asking a cobbler to nail leather onto the brakes. Just 6 years later, in 1894, humanity did what it does best, turned this new invention into competition. The Paris to Rouen race was born. Back then, cars were nothing but exploding wardrobes on cartwheels. The favorite to win the race was a steam tractor, massive and smoky, about as nimble as a suitcase full of anvils. It finished first but was later disqualified for needing a stoker. The eventual winner was a Panhard et Levasseur with an internal combustion engine. The future had arrived, sounding like a bag of angry spanners in a washing machine. Proper racing began in 1906 with the first French Grand Prix. Then in the 1920s, things got properly insane with the Italians. 1927 saw the birth of the Mille Miglia, a 1,000-mile blast from Brescia to Rome, and back then it wasn't public roads. It was less a race and more a national festival of near-death experiences, not too much unlike the modern-day Isle of Man. Crowds would lead into the road as the cars screamed past at over 170 miles an hour. But the real progress came from the great accelerator of automotive progress, the absolute necessity of blowing things up. World War I. It was awful, but for the motor car, it was the ultimate testbed. These flimsy, luxurious contraptions were forced to become tough and rugged. The internal combustion engine was no longer a plaything, but it was the beating heart of modern warfare. Then in the 1930s, along came a man by the name of Ferdinand Porsche. He and his fellow Germans decided to build rolling science experiments, nicknamed the Silveros. The Mercedes W125 from 1937 had a supercharged 5.6-liter V8 producing 646 horsepower. That is more than a 1992 Ferrari F40. They were so fast that they had to be limited to stop the tires from disintegrating. Meanwhile, the French had been running Le Mans since 1923, a 24-hour endurance race that had a ridiculous running start. They used to have drivers sprint to their cars. It was like starting a baking competition with a 100-meter dash. Then World War II happened and ended in 1945, and all that wartime technology needed a new purpose. The aircraft engineering, the tank reliability, and fighter speed, it all came together. Europe was rebuilding, and every nation wanted to prove that their engineering was the best. The stage was set for something big. In 1950, the Fédération Internationale de Automobile looked at all of this, the madness of the Mille Miglia, the endurance of Le Mans, and the insane German engineering prowess, and decided to create the Formula One World Championship. The first race was scheduled for May 13, 1950, at Silverstone, a former World War II bomber airfield in Britain. On the grid sat the giants Alfa Romeo, Maserati, Ferrari. The Alfa Romeo 158S, a pre-war design, so advanced that people might have thought that they were alien. The drivers back then were men like Giuseppe Nino Farina and Juan Manuel Fangio. They were not just drivers, they were gladiators. They climbed into their machines wearing cloth caps with goggles, no seatbelts or other safety equipment, trusting their skill and bravery alone. This was it, the culmination of over 60 years of progress. The flag is about to drop on a new era. An era of Alfa Romeo dominance, of emerging legends and technological revolutions. But who would win? Who would win that very first race? How would the championship pan out? This is a story for another time. Thank you for watching and see you next time.